YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Rome 2, and I wanted to try something a little bit different in this battle. I was going to do a pike rush against Rome. Rome is a very stable faction, and you're going to see them a lot online right now because they're kind of a go-to faction with people. They're a very safe pick. They can counter pretty much anybody. They're a very good faction right now. They are beatable, but it seems like most of the time when I find myself playing Rome, it's like, man, why didn't I bring the chariots? Their infantry is very tanky in this patch, like very good. Even their... I'm going to do some fast forwarding here because this battle's kind of long if you don't. And some pieces of it, there's not really any action going on, like this part of me going over here to meet my opponent. So again, my idea is a pike rush. So what I want to do, I brought 6 Thessalian cav because they're great at charging and they're relatively cheap, pretty cost effective. I'm going to start surrounding my opponent on the flanks. I've got Thurio spears and a shield bearer defending this flank, and then 2 more Thurio spears here. And essentially what I want to do is rush my pikes forward, pin my opponent, swing my Thessalians in, and pin him against my pikes. That's my idea. We'll see if it works. I have an all-rush army with pikes, so this is very risky. He's got Syrian archers, and he's going to immediately start firing on my thorax pikemen, so I can't let him sit here and fire until I get up front of his men, so I'm going to have to charge the Thessalian cav forward and push him back. And then out here, I decided to go ahead and get into a fight with his equites. My Thessalians should turn this around. I'm going to come support them as well, and he's going to have to peel some Vigiles way back. They have silver chevrons in the Vigiles. That seems like odd money spin. Anyway, so my Thessalian cav got his archers pushed back. Now my pikes can come in, and I'm going to push my units on the flank here. And really quickly, I'm going to go through this and just kind of show you how quickly your pikes can take damage to Pilla. They're pretty devastating. So, I mean, that volley there killed 20 of my pikemen. And then this one right here took some losses. But, I mean, yeah, that pike unit there got pretty damaged. Let's go ahead and hit play. I'm going to try and attack this Hastati from the front while simultaneously charging it from the rear and try and immediately take it off the battlefield. We'll see if I'm successful. The Thessalian cav charge from behind, immediately getting quite a few kills there. And then here comes my general. And the Syrian archers are now firing wildly into my, my units over here. And then I've got my own spearmen here, and I kind of screwed up with them. I really, really needed to get these spearmen here to pin these armored legionnaires against my pikes. And instead, I accidentally clicked an attack order into this fight. I still had the opportunity, just I have to pin my opponent in order for this to work, and I haven't done so. Now over here on this flank, I do get some advantageous fights going. Like right here, I've pincered some of those legionnaires in between 2 pike units, and I'm doing fairly well with my Thessalian cav over here as well. So his Hastati did get wrecked, but I'm too slow to react here, and I start getting picked at by his archers. And I did get a Thessalian cav into his archers over here, though, just to temporarily silence them. And my shield bearers can continue this fight. I'm going to chase down these routing Hastati to make sure they don't come back. But again, all this time, I have still failed to pin my opponent with this perfect unit that's right here, able to pin down at least 2 of these armored legionnaires against my pikes and allow them to continue to kill the armored legions. But eventually my opponent is going to retreat from this fight because he doesn't need to be in it. And it's going to start here in a minute. He's going to start retreating. So that's a mistake that I made here. When you're going to bring an army where the whole idea is to pin your opponent, you need to pin your opponent at all costs. And then I start throwing javelins into the back of his armored legions, thinking, this will be good. Again, all this time not really realizing how important it is for me to pin these guys. And then again, I could have brought these guys through to do the same thing, but instead I start swinging around, I think. Or actually, I can't remember. No, I bring him through here. I'm going to go after his archers, but again, should have pinned his men here. And seeing my cav come through, he finally gets out of this formation and backs off from my pikes. So I am going to manage to, for the most part, kill his skirmishers, but it's just a big mistake on my part. Finally going to pin him over here with his armored legions get pinned here. See, this is a perfect opportunity for me to come in and finish these guys from behind with my pikes. My general's tanking out this unit over here. I'm getting a lot of kills. Like, my opponent has lost a pretty substantial amount of his force. But the thing is if I get into late game and don't have the right tools to be able to continue to force the engagement with my pikes, it's not going to end up doing me any good. See him trying to get his Vigiles into the back of my pikemen. I've got Thurio spears over here, tangling with his Hastati. And then my pikes do start squirreling around and doing something weird here. Every now and then they do stuff like this. If you don't notice it, it can be pretty bad. but it usually happens when they're attacking a formation attack unit. Sometimes they'll make weird decisions on where and how to attack it. But yeah, now my opponent's getting his maneuverability back, and it's going to be problematic for me. My general has been fired on a lot by these Syrian archers, which is bad. It's a very important unit to me, and I should have kept him safer from the Syrian archers, but I had to retreat in my attack on the Syrian archers because, again, these armored legions, even though they were on the front of my phalanx, or on the front of my pike phalanx for so long, hardly took any losses because of their armor. And my cavalry is slowly being beaten down in one engagement after another. Again, they've gotten a lot of kills, but it's been questionable as to whether it's been enough. I go ahead and charge some of his armored legions who weren't braced, and then I'm going to pull away from this fight. And I sent this unit out here to hopefully wreck this Syrian archer, but there's only like one cavalryman here. I don't even know how he hasn't routed at this point. Anyway, I end up losing a bunch of Thessalian cav here. That cav charge is kind of foolish, and then my general gets killed. So I've still got a lot of troops left, but unfortunately any troops I have left at this point that aren't disciplined are going to be suffering, and some of my troops are going to suffer anyway from a morale blow. And the Roman just had a ton of troops. I have killed way more men than he has at this point, but he's still got a bunch of troops on the field. That's one of the advantages of the Romans. Like, so what's funny to me is that there's certain factions, like the Arverni, for instance, that are kind of like a barbarian horde type faction. I'm going to fast forward into some of this late game. You can kind of watch what happens here. And essentially, it's funny because you have these barbarian type factions, and they can't necessarily always afford to bring a lot of troops, even though they were kind of known for large numbers of men in their armies. Yet the Romans can bring a ton of troops, and those factions can't always match those numbers. Now again, I'm not necessarily complaining, because I kind of like where the balance is right now, and I don't necessarily want to upset it too much. Again, he just had some troops over here that I'm going to surround and destroy, and I'm still feeling pretty good about my chances to win this battle. I think it's still going to be a pretty stable fight for me. So let's go ahead and fast forward some more. My opponent starts shooting me with flaming arrows, and somehow his men stabilized, and mine actually start hurting really bad on morale. So yeah, his men actually now wavering again. Got this Thurio spear here, and my opponent is bringing his legatus up close. Yeah. And this Thurio Spears has 60 men left, but just continually seems to struggle to stabilize. My opponent does keep shooting his flaming arrows, which is annoying. It's going to hurt my morale. And the morale of my troops just seems pretty low. Not really sure why. The balance bar is starting to tilt in my favor. It says they're taking fire, general dead, so even though they're disciplined, it seems like it's still taking a pretty big toll. I need to get rid of the rest of his Syrian archers, but that was going to be kind of a foolhardy charge there, so I'm going to try and keep my Thessalian cav alive. It's very important that I keep that unit, and I need all of these pike units to get the job done. I'm just not feeling really good that some of my guys are marching around with 109 men, and they've got yellow morale for some reason. It's from the general being dead, and probably from being a little tired, too. My opponent still has several armored legions left. This is going to be a problem. Armored legionnaires are very tough units to kill because their armor is just so strong. So I'm going to attempt to engage my opponent again here, and you can see that he's just trying to avoid my pikes and pay attention to my cav and other units because he knows he can just run away from my pikemen if there's nothing to pin him there. And so you can see him using his armored legions to constantly try and pin my cavalry. I'm going to try and get a quick rear charge and see if I can destroy these armored legions. And I got a nice rear charge, but the killing is still quite slow on them just because they're so tanky. There's a lot of people who still use the armored legions in this patch, and it's because they are just extremely tanky units. And all the while, my opponent can harass me with his legatus, and now my Thessalian cav starts wavering. This many men left, so I gotta get rid of these stupid archers just in case they have any more ammo. So, and then there's some slingers here that I need to get rid of as well. But at the same time, if I lose my cavalry, it's gonna get tough. I could just pike box. I don't really feel like doing that though. I'm not a big fan of it. And look at this thorax pike with 64 men left. It's wavering. Attacked in the rear. That's from these Syrian archers. Just getting to be a big nuisance. And again, everywhere where I try and pin his men, they just run away. And for some reason, the morale on my guys just keeps wavering. His general was alive though, and still supporting his men. Plus the Roman units have great, look at that, 81 base morale. Because of that, well, 65 I guess is the base morale for them. Yeah, that's very good morale. only 55 of my pikemen, so that explains the difference. Trying to pin his armored legions here, I need to try and kill these 2 units so that I have more pikemen to focus on the rest, and then I realize like I really don't need to be in this fight over here. I'm gonna get surrounded. And yeah, it's just pikes are doing kind of funky things, so I try and run away, come rejoin my other troops, and again my opponent's just going to ignore my pikes, run away from them, and just keep chasing my Thessalian cav. And the big problem I have here is like it's going to be really hard to pin these guys down. So again I decide to charge, which sucks because I know I'm going to end up losing my Thessalian cav, but it's like I just need to keep these guys pinned long enough to get my Thorax pikes into combat. So I take my guys out of phalanx formation, just trying anything I can to pin these guys down. And I managed to lose another Thorax pikeman over here. I couldn't get them out of combat, so that's unfortunate. My opponent's got 2 more armored legions over there. But I am going to manage to destroy these guys finally. But I mean, they fought down to almost no men left. Very, very tough units. So it's going to end up being a very close fight here at the end. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward because there's still 3 minutes left. Look at that. Fighting down to under 10 men before they rout. So I've got 3 pikemen left. Smartest thing to do would be to just kind of like pike triangle. My opponent knows that I might try this, so he goes ahead and charges his legatus in. And he's going to try and prevent me from doing so, which he does temporarily. And also it gets my morale the wavering, so I've got to get to the flanks. My opponent's then going to pull in and surround this pike unit, which started doing weird stuff. And then as soon as it routs, like this, now he can just run away. He's got more units than me. And his general... I think his general's still alive. Let's take a look. Yeah, general's still alive. Only a few men left in his legatus unit. And here I try one last-ditch effort to try and kill his general, but he manages to slip away. So his general lives through all this, and it ends up being a pretty deciding factor here because his men just don't lose morale and mine do. So my opponent ends up winning in the end, though it is going to be a very Pyrrhic victory for him. Like I said, his army was enormous, and I killed almost all of it. But this is one of those situations you may find yourself in against the Romans where you feel like you're making a lot of good progress, and you won't win still, because the Roman units are so tanky. And again, just look at that. My opponent can bring 7 very heavy infantry, so he's got 6 legionaries, and 3 legionaries, 4 armored legionaries, and then the 2 Hastati, nice light infantry units. He can bring all that infantry at basically the same cost as what I brought all this infantry here, except the Roman is good. So that's one of the strengths of the Romans you got to be really aware of. This was a very winnable battle for me, and the key was where I failed to get those Thurio spears into the rear of his men, which was the whole plan originally with the Thurio spears and the Thessalian cav. So I failed to do that, and it cost me the battle. So it's important to understand if you're going to try a tactic like this, you got to make sure you stay on top of that. Anyway, HeirofCarthage, signing off for now.